let's get into paper one. Section one is one of the key areas that we want help with. So we'll go through the system for getting full marks in section one. With paper one, day one of your English exam, because it's in 2 papers, 2 days, the first paper is just the common module, text and human experiences. That's where you're going to have an essay and you're going to have the short answer questions. Now, the key thing is not to treat the essay section as being 40 minutes or 45 minutes rather, because you do get an hour and a half of writing time, but there's no reason to treat this essay differently to the other essays, which only have 40 minutes allocated. So to make sure that you plan correctly, just because it says 45 and 45, don't actually treat the essay as being 45 minutes for paper one. Instead, treat it as 40 minutes and try and do your draft in 32 minutes. So the 32 minutes for the essay is the draft time that I would aim for. Again, if you're a slightly slower writer, up to 34 minutes. Make those cuts, time out your work. That gives you a little bit of a buffer in case section one goes over. So if you take 50 minutes for section one, no dramas, you were prepared because you had a 32-minute draft. So it's all about preparing for worst case scenarios. So we want to allow 45 minutes, maximum of 50 minutes on section one. Make sure you keep an eye on the clock and don't go over. And you also have 10 minutes reading time. Obviously, 10 minutes reading time should be spent looking at the section one text that you've never seen before. Of course, you might want to go and look at the essay question, flick to that straight away, think about it for 20 seconds, then go and start on your reading time straight away. Now, paper two, just going ahead here, 40 minutes each section. Do that paper in order as well. You should do this paper in order. You should do this paper in order. There are the times, 34 minutes for module A, especially if you're doing English advanced because you've got 2 texts. It can be a bit more dense. 32 minutes I would aim for with module B, and less than 30 minutes for your module C, so that you've got some time to spare for the essays, which typically require a bit more to get the marks. Whereas module C, you could have a shorter craft of writing piece that takes less than 30 minutes in total, and you could still get full marks. So that's the timing there. If you all just want to note down the times to aim for your drafts, they're all at the bottom there in yellow. So 34 minutes, 32 minutes, less than 30 minutes for module C. And over here, it was 32 minutes for common mod and 45 to 50 minutes for section one. Do the whole paper in order. The order is there to help you. All right, for section one, so again, section one here, where you get 10 minutes reading time and then 45 minutes, maximum 50 to complete the section. You get that reading time, you'll look at the essay question when you start the exam for 20 seconds, then just spend your time looking at the questions and the texts. But here's a question for you all. When you start section one, the reading time, what do you read first and why? In the comments as well, you read the question, but which part of the questions? I actually wouldn't even read the whole question. Let's think about the question so you're looking at all the questions, you might get about 4 or 5, you'll get 5 questions usually for a short answer paper. So let's say you're looking at the questions. Which part in that question line is the most important thing to look at first? The marks, that's it. You look at the marks. The reason why you look at the marks is so that you know how long to spend on each text. Because if a text is only 3 marks, you don't need to spend that long analyzing it. You also don't need to spend that long answering the question for it. But if a question has a 7 marker, you need to find more evidence. You need to spend more time on it. So you need to understand the mark structure so that you can divvy up your time accordingly and not spend more time than you need on each text, because you might be able to find a couple things straight away. You might be able to get 2 techniques straight away in a text and link them to the question. Great, you've got your answer, move to the next one, okay? The other thing is when you get the marks, 3 marks, 4 marks, you can visualize the structure. I know exactly how many sentences I have to write per response, per question. Having that visual structure of how many sentences per question will help you go a lot faster. So you just think about that for 15 seconds, have a look at all the marks. Okay, 3 marker, 4 marker, 4 marker, 5 marker, 6 marker. Great. Now I know which texts have which marks, how long to spend, and I know that I can visualize the sentence structure for each of those. Now, really important. So that's what you read first. Then you read all of the questions. And then before you read each text, you reread the question that applies to that text so that you're analyzing that text deliberately. You're reading it with a focus. Don't just read a text and then look at a question. You look at the question first and the marks, and you say, okay, this question is about paradoxes, or this question is about human motivation. Okay, now I'm just going to look at this text with motivation in mind, or with human emotions. Whatever is the key word of the question, don't worry about the verbs, just worry about the key words from the rubric or the theme. Think, how can I find that in this text? So only read a text after you know the marks and you know the key words of the question. And there's usually just one key word in the question. Then you look for those things very deliberately and you don't need to worry about anything else, okay? So that should save you time overall if you have that approach. Now, in terms of the question we have here, if we pre-memorize the essay, is it better to start it first or not? Do not complete the essay first, even if it's pre-memorized. That has nothing to do with it. You do not complete the essay first because you will most likely run out of time when you go back to do section 1. Even though a lot of you are going to be more comfortable and confident with the essay, don't fall into the trap. It's a trap, okay? If you do the essay first, you'll feel good about it because you know it and you think you can answer the question. Amazing. I'm scared of section 1. I get it. I didn't like section 1 either. But you come to like section 1 because it's the most structured. Now, if you do the essay first, you need to reread all of those texts from reading time. And some of the texts are quite long. So you're going to lose another 10 minutes because after writing out the essay, you're not going to be as fresh on those texts. So you won't be able to answer the question straight away. So now you're going through the paper halfway through the exam, trying to reread those texts. You're going to be rushed. And I've had lots of students try to do this. Well, not lots, because I basically forced them to not do it for their own benefit. But a couple of students who have done it still have got to the section 1 and they've run out of time every time. They've run out of time and they end up with like a 10 out of 20 on the section 1, even if they got 20 out of 20 in the essay section. Now, would you rather get 18 and 18 or 20 and 10? I would rather get 18 and 18 because that's a much higher average. So even if you get full marks in the essay, if you only get half of your section 1 done because you avoided it and did the essay first, you'll most likely get a much worse mark overall. So please do not do the essay first. Do every paper in order. So once again, do not do the essay first. Now, what are the skills? This is what you should all write down. We're gonna quickly go through the 3 areas that, if mastered or even if just practiced enough, will allow you to get full marks for section 1, okay? Structure, you need to know how to structure different questions. You need to know how to find techniques, and you need to know how to analyze those techniques in relation to the question. So let's go through those. First thing, structure. How do you structure a response?
Hey everyone, it's Johnny from Jettle, and if you want to check out state rank examples, band 6 analysis, step-by-step guides to constructing the perfect essays, craft of writing pieces, whatever it is that you need for your English exams, then go to jettle.com. We've put everything in one place for you so that you don't need to look any further to get everything you need to succeed in your exams. And if you want to submit a draft and get expert marking, or you want to use our marking tools to get specific suggestions on how you can improve your essays, your creative writing pieces, anytime, anywhere, make sure you sign up to Jedi today.
Well, with the extended response, the mini essay, 6+ marks requires a mini essay structure. So if you get a question that is 6 marks or 7 marks, comparing 2 texts or just on 1 text, I want you to treat it like a mini essay. So you're going to have 2 body paragraphs that are like kind of like peel structures where you have a point and then your examples, but you don't really need to have a link sentence. So don't worry about the link sentence in this structure. And the introduction and the conclusion only need to be 1 sentence. So make sure you're noting this down. It might look like more just from the diagram, but for a 6 or 7 marker, which are typically the maximum amount of marks, we treat them exactly the same. A 6 and 7 marker, treat them the same. An introduction is 1 sentence, the conclusion is 1 sentence, and the body paragraphs are like a 4 marker each. It's like having a 3 or 4 marker for each of them. This is what I mean by that. Each of those body paragraphs is going to have a topic sentence plus 3 sentences of analysis. And that's why there's the technique in the quote reveals this effect. The metaphor in this reveals this. You can be very structured with your analysis. You don't need to be fancy. Don't be fancy with your analysis. Just start with the technique when you get into your analysis. The metaphor, the simile, moreover, the personification. Just keep it nice and simple. Okay, so that is your structure for the mini essay. Okay, typically you'll just get 1 6 or 7 marker. And if you get it, you'll know what to do. I've got to do 1 sentence in the introduction, just introducing the key ideas. Then I've got to have my 2 body paragraphs that have 1 idea on each text. If you have 2 texts, but if you have 1 text, then I have 2 different ideas on the text. And then I have my 1 sentence conclusion, which can just be about the impact. What is the impact on the responder? Yeah, good question. So can you recycle evidence if you've already referred to a text in a different question? The answer is yes, you can, but it doesn't mean you can recycle the effect. Like, see the green parts here? They have to link directly to the new question. So you can use the same pieces of evidence as long as you're explaining them differently in terms of their effect. What I would generally try to do is try and have one unique piece of evidence, because the chances are that the other bits of evidence that you had in your other question or answer are not going to be the most relevant ones for this new question. So you might need to be a little bit more selective, and you might need to bring in one new piece. But I imagine if you chose the right evidence for the other one, you can just bring them back in, but explain them differently, okay? So you can reuse them, and I advise you all to do this, especially under time pressure. It's so much easier if you've already found some relevant techniques, but make sure that they are relevant for this particular idea in the topic sentence, which is going to be a bit different to the other paragraph or other answer you did, because it would have been on a different question. So you might have to make some adjustments, but more or less, I would estimate that you could probably reuse at least 2 out of the 3 pieces of evidence. Just make sure you explain them differently in the effect, so that you use the new keywords of the question. All right, great. So then they're the extended ones. What about just your typical 3-marker, 4-marker, 5-marker? Well, just follow this structure. The marks equal sentences. Marks equal the number of sentences. So you should all write that down. You want to feel very confident with how you need to structure your answers. So 3 marks equals 3 sentences. 4 marks equals 4 sentences. 5 marks equals 5 sentences on average, okay? These are kind of the bare minimum that you need to get full marks. And I would only do the bare minimum. When I say bare minimum, don't freak out in the exam and be like, oh, he said that's bare minimum, so I have to do more. As in, that's all you have to do and should do. Just do each sentence correctly. You're not going to get any benefit from doing extra sentences. You can get the marks in this time. And because time is of the essence, you don't want to write more than you have to. So this is all you need to do. Don't worry about link sentences. Don't worry about conclusions. That stuff is all irrelevant in short answers. For a 5-marker, could you have a link sentence? Sure, that's the one exception, a link sentence for a 5-marker. But I've seen people get 5 out of 5 without it. So doesn't that suggest to you that you don't need it? I'm more interested in what you need to get 5 out of 5, not what you could have. Because adding the link sentence, how much value are you adding, truly? I don't think it's adding that much. And the conclusion isn't either. So yes, for an extended response, you have a 1-sentence conclusion that focuses on the impact on the responder of the text. What is the intended impact? We want to challenge the responder to reconsider what about the human experience, or what about the question. Sure, have that as your conclusion. It's the impact on the responder, whereas the introduction is introducing the ideas in relation to the question. So there's a different focus for the introduction and the conclusion, but don't worry about the conclusion or link sentences for a 3 to 5 marker generally. Okay, make sure you understand the first sentence of your answer, a lot of people don't know this, should be a topic sentence, not a technique. Unless the question itself mentions a technique, then you should not mention techniques in your topic sentence. It should be responding to the question by breaking it down. Okay, so let's go through that now. Your first sentence for every 3 to 5 mark response needs to be a topic sentence, not a list of techniques, not a quote. Don't bring that in yet. You'll bring it in after. So for a 3-marker, you'll only have 2 pieces of evidence. And you can literally bring them in the way you see here. The technique, the metaphor in the quote reveals this effect. Use the keywords of the question when explaining the effect. You can be very, very structured and formulaic for short answers. Okay, so don't feel like you need to be fancy. Now, with those topic sentences, see how the first sentence of a paragraph is a topic sentence? Let's see how you can do an effective topic sentence. The key thing for an effective topic sentence is to provide one specific insight relating to the question. Don't just write a big word or a big theme word, right? You need to actually engage with the question by breaking it down. What does that actually look like then? Imagine you got asked a question and the key word was impact or emotion. What human emotions are revealed by the text? Or what does the text reveal about the impacts of certain human experiences? Well, notice this example, right? Notice how simple the start is. Text A reveals. Just use the words of the question to start the topic sentence. Doesn't need to be fancy. Text A reveals the emotional impact. That's responding directly and using the key terms of the question. Don't use synonyms. Of new places. It reveals the emotional impact of new places by sparking curiosity. So the question didn't say anything about curiosity. The question didn't say anything about new places. This is what we have added. This is the specific idea. There's an emotional impact of new places, which is to spark curiosity. So do you see how that provides one specific insight? That new places spark curiosity. All of that was added in. The question didn't say anything about that. So you have to get the word of the question, emotional impact, add the word of after it. If you're really paying attention to this, you will practice using the word of after keywords, and then, or a word like of, it just forces you to extend yourself, right? So you use the actual key term, then you expand. Reveals the emotional impact of new places by sparking curiosity. We're expanding on the question. Does anyone have any questions about this? This is how you're going to nail the topic sentence.
Is this only for short response, or can you do this on extended response as well?
This principle that I'm talking about is for everything, for any body paragraph. It's mainly for short answers. Everything we're going through now is mainly short answers, but it's good you asked that. This is also what you should be doing in your essays, your extended responses. If you meant for the 5 to 6, the 6 or 7 markers, that also for those bodies as well. But any topic sentence should be doing this. For your essays, for the essay sections, you'll probably have prepared more in your draft and you'll have a bit more detail and a bit more sophistication. But generally speaking, that's what you need to do. Now, question, do you refer to human experience? Only if the question's main focus is human experience. Every short answer question comes from the human experiences module. You all need to go and look at that rubric that mentions motivations and behaviors, paradoxes, inconsistencies, anomalies, collective and individual. Yes, all of those key terms are where the questions come from, but only focus on the one or the multiple ones that are given in that question. So you don't need to say human experience for the sake of it. You just need to understand that everything is about human experiences. And if you can use that language occasionally, great, but prioritize the actual key terms of the question, which might have human experience in it, but it might say something more specific. Okay, so you don't need to say human experiences unless that is mentioned in the question as a key term. In which case you need to say what the human experience is. Like I said here, what is the emotional impact? Well, it's that you get curiosity when you go to new places. Okay, you've given me something specific there. Practice doing that in your topic sentences. Okay, so what do we think about this one? Yeah, thumbs down, right? Because it hasn't said anything about family. See how the key word of the question was family? Because family is part of human experience. It doesn't have to say human experience to have a word like that. Text A represents family. Well, you haven't said anything about family through imagery. You don't need to mention techniques. Techniques should be coming in the sentences after, remember? So this has done two things wrong. It's mentioned techniques, which it doesn't need to, because even though the question says how, you can answer that in the next 2 sentences. And assuming this was 3 marker, you would do 2 sentences of analysis after. But text A represents family. We need to say something about family. Text A represents family, love, and adversity. Again, still no good because you've just listed 3 words. Don't list like this, okay? Say one thing, one specific thing about family. Don't just chuck in other words with a comma. You need to instead say, what's the power of family? What's the relevance of family? What's the value of family? So I'm going to give you a really helpful tip here for expanding on any key term of the question. You ready for it? Text A represents the power of family or familial connections to help individuals through adversity. This is how you distinguish between a bad topic sentence and a good topic sentence. And the key is, instead of just saying the word family, say the power of family to do something. And I want you all to write this down. If you really want a kind of a secret trick here, I want you all to write down the power of, and there's a couple more that you can use, the capacity for, the ability of, the potential for, the value of. And those expressions are what you can put in right here after you say represents, and then you can say the key word and expand a little bit. Here we say familial connections. So we've even said a little bit more than just family. And then we've said to help individuals through adversity. But the key thing that allowed us to even do this was by saying the power of, the ability for, the capacity for, the value of familial connections in helping individuals through adversity. If you can start just using those kinds of expressions every time, mix them up a little bit. You don't need to mix them up that much. You could use the same thing every single time if it works. And then force yourself to say the word to after it, the power of to, and then say something here, you're forcing yourself to do the right thing by giving a specific insight that links to the question. Great. So that's what we want. I want to give you just for the session today, just a few of these. What I just gave you there was a killer tip. It's just going to save you so much trouble on the day to use this kind of structure. This is why you memorize structures like this to make you go faster, right? You memorize a structure like this for short answers even, so that you're faster on the day. You don't want to think about how do I need to start the sentence. Just start it like this every time and fill in the relevant thing or idea that has come through the text. Don't they all mean the same thing? Exactly, Baz. So they all mean the same thing, so you can just rotate through them. They're all the same. The point is I'm giving you 4 or 5 different options, but you could just use the same one in all of your answers. 3 marker, 4 marker, 5 marker. Keep saying represents the ability of, the potential for. It doesn't matter. You can even use these in your sentences of analysis. They just force you to expand rather than list and say nothing. The point is they do all mean the same thing, and they force you to do the right thing. So you're going to get the marks through these expressions. You're not going to get the marks through the power of, but the power of will force you to do the right thing and get the marks. You don't need to say text A represents at the start. Okay, text A represents at the start, but I find that it's a very simple way of answering the question. The reason why I said text A represents is because up here it says, how does the text represent? Text A represents. I'm not overcomplicating anything. Can you all see that? I'm keeping it simple. You don't earn marks through being fancy with how you bring in the text. But yeah, you don't need to always start it that way. It's not that important. It's not important at all to use the name of the author in short answers. You can just say the author, the poet, the composer is the broadest term, the composer. I just say text A or the composer represents. You're not going to lose marks on those bits. That's the beauty of section 1. It's that you don't lose marks for little things like that. You just get marks from being specific. That's it. And making sure you use the actual word of the question. because you need to make the sentence make sense. Some of you didn't actually say equality, and some of you said too many words that weren't actually answering the question directly. So there are some really useful takeaways for you to help with those topic sentences. Moving on. What about sentences of analysis? Okay, after you do a topic sentence, you have to do a number of analysis sentences, analytical sentences. What you need to have is just 4 things: a technique, a quote, or if it's a visual feature, you can describe the feature, a verb, and an effect. Okay, and the effect is where you explain the meaning in relation to the question. Don't overcomplicate the sentence structure. For those of you asking about sentence structure, because it is worth memorizing these, you just start with the word the metaphor in the quote, then you use a verb. Now, if you want some go-to verbs, I used spiced. S for suggest, P for portrays, I for illustrates, C for conveys, E for emphasizes, D for depicts or demonstrates. If you want a verb, like go-to 6 verbs that you can just use instead of saying shows and displays, which markers don't like. Not that you'd lose a mark for that in short answers, but just avoid ever using shows and displays in your writing. Let's get rid of those forever now. Great. And then in the effect, you zoom in. So what does that look like? The metaphor in the quote. You chuck in the word in if you're not sure what else to say. Doesn't matter if it doesn't flow perfectly in short answers. The metaphor in his heart was shattered depicts, there's our D from spiced, the man's emotional despair. Okay, can someone tell me why, even though that effect is very short and we typically want to make it a little bit more insightful, can someone tell me why that effect is useful or why it's relevant? What have we done with, where does emotional come from in relation to the quote? And where does the word despair come from in relation to the quote? Because the effect needs to link to the quote directly. This is what you all need to focus on. If you guys struggle saying something about the evidence or the quotes that you're using, then this is going to be the key lesson for you. So what do we think? What's the key connection here? Caden, what do you think?
Yeah, I was thinking the emotional bit comes from the heart in the quote and
good
from shattered.
Excellent. Nailed it. Yep, that's it. So what we're showing there is that when the word choice for your effect or explanation should directly relate to the words of the quote. So I like to find synonyms or related words for the words that are in the quote you're analyzing, and then you can use those in the effect. So here's another example of that, but just want to make sure everyone's clear on that. Emotional comes from heart, despair because the heart was shattered. So it clearly is depicting emotional despair, but there's a clear linkage. Have a look at this example. The simile in I hold out my palms like the opened pages of a book reveals the speaker's openness, opened pages, openness to the world, which allows them to be present in the moment. And they were the keywords of this question. So look at the red boxes. That's the most obvious example of having a linkage between the quote and the effect. And that is the little secret to always get something specific in the explanation of your evidence. This is enough analysis for one piece of evidence. The reason why it's enough, I'll explain, is because does it say one specific thing about the quote? Like it says, we've got the technique, the simile. Does it say what it reveals? The speaker's openness to the world. Does it tell us something? Okay. Does it link to the question? So it does the 2 things that you need to do. This is why I'm showing you this. It does the 2 things. It says specifically what that quote means. And then it says, comma, which allows them to be present in the moment. So it's saying that if someone is open to something, you can be present to something. That's an insight. Why would you need to say any more than that to get 1 mark? That is getting the mark every time. The way it works is you have this sentence and you get 1 mark if you satisfy it, right? 1 sentence, 1 mark. If I do this again, I get another mark. If I did a good topic sentence, I'm on 3 marks. If it was a 3 marker, I got full marks. It works like that. So everyone needs to feel confident here. You don't just keep writing more and more sentences to get a mark. You just do it right the first time and that's it. A lot of students end up repeating the question and that's why they end up trying to write more. They're not actually saying much. This just gets straight to one specific point. It gets specific because it looks at part of the quote and uses a similar term, and then it links it back to the question. So this is the most formulaic example I can give you. And if you did this every time, you'll get full marks as long as you make a point that's relevant. So what I've shown you so far, I've basically shown you the unlock to section 1. You know how to structure each response. You know how to write a topic sentence that provides a specific insight, and I've given you the sentence structures to force you to do that. And I've shown you exactly what you need to do in each sentence of analysis. So you've got all the framework now. Do we need to have some quick go-to techniques? Yes, you've got to know your techniques. But this is basically everything you need now for section 1. Let's go to the technique side of things. One thing you did ask about, which I think might be useful, is you said, how do I spot techniques quickly? What about when you don't understand, a text? You get a text, so you don't know where to find things. One trick I want to give you to finish section 1. Always find a technique in the first couple of lines, especially with a poem, okay? Always try and find a technique straight away in the first couple of lines. Then I focus on the middle of the text. Then I find something at the end of the text. The reason why I try and find bits of evidence from different parts of a text is so that I'm making different points. So a final thing for you all to remember is when you go through a text, make sure you zoom in on different parts that you're comfortable with and then analyze those. Don't worry if you don't understand the whole text, because that's something that a lot of students struggle with. Don't worry if you don't understand the whole text. Zoom in on parts you do understand. Here are a few techniques for you if you want to remember them. Voice. A lot of people don't even bother to remember voice. Like first person. If a poem's in first person, to a city where I'll remember nothing. That's a useful technique. What about enjambment? That always comes up in poetry because someone asked earlier about analyzing poetry. Enjambment, where the line continues without any full stops or commas. Look at the end of that word, nothing. There's nothing there, right? To a city where I'll remember nothing but a clump of yachts. Okay, that means there's enjambment and it creates this rant-like style. Tone is a technique. If you can't find any techniques, that's part of mest. Mest is best. The T in mest is tone. Just make sure you specify the tone. For instance, hostile tone. You need to say a type of tone. Okay, volta is when there's a tonal shift in a poem. Typically, it comes at the halfway mark or later, and you'll see it through the word but or yet. That is an example of what that I made up for that one to show you. Great. That's how you can find techniques. Remember, don't worry if you can't understand the whole text. Zoom in on lines that you do understand. Find a technique, link it to the question in the way that we practiced.